Hey y'all, I'm Karen Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. If you've ever felt confused, overwhelmed, or just plain frustrated at the 504 IEP table, you are in the right place. Every week, I'm breaking down the rules, the rights, and the realities of special education so you can walk into meetings informed, empowered, and ready to make real change. And whether you're a parent, a teacher, an advocate, a school-based member, or somebody who's just trying to do right by a student, this podcast gives you straight talk, real answers, and tools that you can use immediately. I'm not here to play politics. I'm not here to play sides. I'm here to train people who sit at the table and teach you how to follow the law, ask the right questions, and protect the rights of students. So go ahead and hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change. We're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.
Hey, you guys, welcome back. We are in a brand new series I'm super excited about. We just finished an important series on paraprofessionals and how amazing they are. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch that. But we're doing a series, a very in-depth series on specially designed instruction. And so if we haven't met, I'm Karen Mayer Cunningham, special education boss, training everyone that sits at the 504 IEP table to navigate, negotiate successful student outcomes. I don't even know why this is a topic. I don't know why we don't train on this at schools as it relates to the special education teachers. Just by a show of hands, how many special education teachers on here or teachers or school-based members have had a training at your school on specially designed instruction? You don't want to do it right out of the gate, right? How many decades have you been teaching? So here's what you should know. There's an equal sign. Special education is specially designed instruction. They are the same thing. And so we're going to go over this very in-depth. We did a series on this a very long time ago, but we're really going to walk it out, unpack it as it relates to IDEA, so that when you are in a meeting, I have actually gone to hearings over this, due process hearings. I have sat in meetings where they have told me that specially designed instruction is an accommodation. And so somebody very smart told me one time, an attorney, goes, this is how you know it's specially designed instruction. It's special and it's instruction. So an accommodation is not instruction. It's an accommodation. So specially designed instruction. So one of the things that I train you guys on is when you're in a meeting, I will say to Elena, describe to me, and we do the TED acronym, right? Tell me, explain, describe. So Elena, when you're providing Billy specially designed instruction, tell me what that looks like. Travis, when you're providing your visual training, explain to me what you're doing. Shannon, when you're working on reading intervention, describe what happens during that time. The magic that happens from special educators, related service providers, and instructional service providers is SDI, specially designed instruction. I've taken the state standard, the state expectation, and I've adapted in a way that serves the child with a disability. If you cannot get this question answered in an IEP meeting, you've been denied faith. You've been denied faith, right? And so I was in a meeting today, won't tell you what district I was in, might have been threatened to get out of the district. And I asked her if I could have the data sheets, from a parking lot that I was threatened in recently. She gave me the data collection sheets. Do you want to know what the first date of the data collection sheet is? Y'all guess the first date from this fall semester. Somebody just guess. Just throw it out there. What? The day after the first? No? The day before. So we started taking data November 19th. So what does that mean? She's taken data for how many days? 4. We've been in school. She's taken data. It was the first day back to school. Like she sent them over to me, right? So it's very important. The whole point of all of us IEPing is special education, is specially designed instruction. They are the same definition. So if you're not a member of Council for Exceptional Children, I recommend that you join. I'm just, a bottom feeder attendee. The rest of you guys are all fancy people. You're really going to find amazing stuff there. But for a brief understanding of what specially designed instruction is, in practical terms, specially designed instruction is instruction that's tailored to a special ed student. It addresses their IEP goals. It accounts for their disability, provides modifications or adaptations to content, and encourages actually requires access to the general education curriculum, right? So one of the ways that you can ask this, because sometimes, and it's sort of like IEP goal writing. When I ask, hey, Maureen, what's especially designed instructed? She may not, like you just saw, no teachers raise their hand, right? They might not know what you're talking about. And so what I say is, Shannon, I cannot get Billy to do math at home, but when you work with him in math, he's happy to do it for you. Can you explain to me what you're doing with him when you're working on math? Can you explain to me what you're doing when you're working on his vision needs? Can you explain to me what you're doing when it's time for OT? And so almost always they can explain that. But if you can't describe what you're doing different than the general ed teacher, there hasn't been any specially designed instruction. Okay. And before I can have specially designed instruction, I've got to have really good goals that require it. Right. And so we're going to kind of unpack this. This will be a longer series. So SDI, specially designed instruction, is defined in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. So December 2nd, 1975, we know that Gerald Ford signed the Educating All Handicapped Children Act happily. And it's been 49 years of amazing successes and gains for kids with disabilities. Okay. So it is adapting as appropriate to the needs of an eligible child. Under this part, the content, methodology, or delivery of instruction that, one, addresses the unique needs of the child that result from the child's disability, and next, to ensure access of the child to the general ed curriculum. So let's kind of unpack those two things. So we kind of say that, access to the general ed curriculum. When we're looking for an identified need and eligibility, an area, what is it about them that impedes their access to the general ed curriculum? Or in another way, what the neurotypical student is able to achieve in settings at school, right? So the first thing that we have to do under Andrew F. March 22nd, 2017, is we have to identify what are their unique circumstances. So it doesn't say what are their disabilities. It doesn't say what prescriptions do you have. It doesn't say, how are you misbehaving? It talks about your unique circumstances. So long before I can design, especially designed instruction, I have to know what are their unique circumstances. And I trained you guys till you are the best PLAF producers, power squad in the world, right? So the PLAF should be, right? You should have everything about the kiddos will be properly served. SDI, specially designed instruction, can be provided in a variety of domains: academic, behavioral, social, functional, communicative, any related or instructional service. That is not an exhaustive list. Although often confused, SDI is not differentiation. Designed for all learners. An accommodation, providing a change in how a student obtains information such as Braille, or a modification, adjusting the content a student is meant to access. SDI is often provided by a special education teacher in a special ed setting. Okay. So every IEP goal is a special ed goal. Can we agree on that? You don't have any general ed IEP goals because they wouldn't be part of an individualized education plan. So when you're writing these IEP goals, right, and we're not going to teach on writing IEP goals, but just as a framework, what is the school going to do? What do you expect him to do? We'll set baseline and where do you think he's going to end up? Who's the implementer? And what is the method of data collection? So the implementer is going to be at least one special educator and many other staff members. The method of evaluation is those 3 words: weekly data collection. You better write it down. Literally was in a meeting today and the lady sent me the data. I said, this is just for 2 days. She goes, yeah, it says IEP progress reports are every 9 weeks. So once in 9 weeks, we do a running record. And I've been doing this with this little girl since 3rd grade. She's in 8th grade and there's an attorney in the meeting. Okay. So you got to get your goal right. So when you're crafting this document, I want to know that when Tanya picks this up, when Kimberly picks this up, when Brittany picks this up, we are all going to do the same thing to make him successful. Different than differentiation, meaning that Elena's a reading specialist and, Shannon's a reading specialist. They can both do it differently. But I need to know that thing that Elena did for him to make gains. Otherwise, we make it harder on special ed kids than general ed kids, because general ed is a set curriculum that we teach in a set way, right? Specially designed instructions. I want to know, what is Angie doing that he is crushing it? What is Lee doing when she pulls him out of class that's making a difference, right? And I want to capture that in some way that's purposeful in the document, okay? So specially designed instruction. So let's talk about what IDEA says about it. IDEA section 300.39. According to IDEA 300.39, special education means specially designed instruction. Special education means specially designed instruction. So as the great Dr. Yell will tell us, there's an identified need in the present levels, which must correlate to a service. The need must have a corresponding service, right? And almost always, I can't think of a time that there wouldn't be an IEP goal to that. Okay. So special education means specially designed instruction. So when you're in the meeting, and I will not belabor this, and there's no special educator with the student, there was never specially designed instruction. And we're going to go over next week. We have a whole guidance book that's amazing that we're going to go through with yes, no, true, false questions, which I like those. Okay. So special education means specially designed instruction at no cost to the parents to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability, including instruction conducted in the classroom, in the home, in hospitals, in institutions, and other settings, and instruction in physical education. Number 2, special education includes each of the following: if the service otherwise met the requirements of paragraph A in this section, speech and language pathology services or any other related services, if the service is considered special education rather than a related service under state standards, travel, training, and vocational education. So when you see paperwork and it says instructional service, related service, those are all special those are all specialists that have a special certification to implement those IEP goals and deliver those related or instructional services. So under Child Find, it says we test for children that are ILE, identify, locate, and evaluate children who have suspected disabilities who may be in need of special education and what? Related services. So those are an additional special education service called a related service or an instructional service only in Texas. Okay. What is specially designed instruction according to IDEA? According to IDEA, E is in boy, 3 is in 3. Special education instruction means adapting as appropriate to the needs of an eligible child to address the unique needs to ensure access to the child the general ed curriculum so that the child can meet the educational standards within the jurisdiction of the public education agencies that applies to all children. So what is this about? Eliminating inequity and applying access. So we do as advocates, as school-based members, we're giving a child access and mitigating that disability. Okay. What are the SDI elements? So an SDI element, there are 3. Number 1 is content. Number 2 is methodology. And number 3 is delivery of instruction. I'm going to go over these kind of quickly for tonight, deep dive into all of them. So SDI element content. What is content? That is the what. What is taught to allow the student access general education curriculum? So today in my meeting, they had an IEP goal for the 8th grader that reads 45 words per minute, but they told me she was on grade level, but her lexile was 615, which is 3rd grade. Okay, I feel like that's 8th grade, except for the part where it's not 8th grade, right? So what is being taught? So the content is to allow the student to access the general education curriculum, right? So it's important that when we are writing goals that will be special education, that it's a special education goal. I can't tell you how many times that you will get an IEP or you wrote an IEP and it was a state standard. That a child will identify the character, the main event, and the plot. There's nothing special ed about it. That a child will stay in their designated area, nothing special ed about it. If the child will read at grade level, there's nothing special ed about that. So before I can expect for there to be specially designed instruction, I have to identify that there's a deficit and I'm going to teach a what? a skill. So the IEP goal is to teach a skill, not to get a grade, right? So that what it means. Questions to consider when you're looking at the what. Number one, are adaptations needed for the content as a result of the disability? Now, people get all in their feelings about this when I use the word. My biggest cuss word in IEP meetings is data. That's how dare I say that. And number two, when I say modification, oh my gosh, we are teaching him eighth grade, really, because he reads on a first grade level. I don't think you are teaching eighth grade. So it's important when you're writing the IEP goal that you identify what's the verb to be, what's the baseline. It's all about the base, right? So I'm writing this IEP goal, and before I can have specially designed instruction in that goal, I'm going to say, Lee, can you tell me, I see this goal, but can you tell me where you pulled that from as a baseline in the present level? And before you can write an IEP goal, before you can deliver specially designed instruction, there has to be a baseline. I'm at 2, I'm trying to get to 4. So just help me, okay? So that has to be somewhere in the present levels because it's going to be part of your IEP goal, even if you don't use that exact language. I have a baseline, right? Especially designed instruction is going to get me to the outcome that I think he can achieve in 36 instructional weeks. Next, does the data indicate the student needs specialized instruction in a specific academic or functional area? So I'm not going to belabor this, but a PLAF, present levels of academic achievement and functional performance as deemed in the Andrew F. decision. Go back and read that, make that your special ed Bible. So we determined there that the word PLAF, present levels of academic achievement, we all know what that is. Those are those 4 or 5 areas, and functional performance. So the Supreme Court said everything else other than academics are called functional performance. So a speech goal, an OT goal, a behavior goal, a dressing goal, an attention goal, an attending goal. Those are all considered functional performance. So that's where you get the AAFP. Okay? So did we notice and indicate that they need special instruction in these areas? Next question to consider. What are the content and skills needed outlined in the IEP? What are the content and skills needed in the IEP? What is the deficit? If I know what the deficit is, I can teach a skill. Number one, the only thing we do in special ed is what is that? You teach a strategy for a child to self-manage their disability. And the fourth question to consider in the what of SDI around content, how can we leverage the student's strengths and current knowledge as we identify needed adaptations to instructional content that will be provided? We're going to have to adapt. If we didn't have to adapt it, she wouldn't need an IEP goal. We're going to have to do it different. Elena's teaching the general ed content. I'm the special educator. I'm the case manager. I'm the paraprofessional assisting the special educator. What do I need to adapt? Which is just some fancy word for adjusting and changing, right? Which is something that adults do, humans do well, whether they want to or not. We adapt, right? So how do I do that so that they can have equal access and not be denied inequity to the content? Okay. All right. Next, methodology. How? So, and sometimes I don't use the word methodology because people get that confused with differentiation, and you teachers use all these big fancy words. So methodology is the how I'm doing. How do I get Billy, who is struggling in math, to make gains, right? What is it that I'm doing that the general ed teacher doesn't do? The general ed teacher delivers the state standard. The general ed teacher is not delivering special education. Can we just all agree to that? Because she's a general edding. She's a GDI. She said general design instructor, right? Okay. So how the instruction is delivered or the practices and approach the teacher uses. So write this down. It's a great phrase. How the instruction is delivered or the practices and approach the teacher uses to teach. So this is what I say. Both my boys were athletes. They both had private coaches. I remember the first thing that both of my son's coaches did, one was a runner and one was a bowler. They made them start working out with weights. I'm like, what does that have to do? Because that's part of the practice and the approach for them to get stronger in their skill set, right? Will it make them run faster? Will it make them have a higher score in the bowl over time, right? So when you're in a meeting, I'm just going to say, hey, can you describe what it looks like when you're working with Billy? Because sometimes when you use words like Stephanie, what is your practice when you're working on multiplication? She's like, Thursdays, right? And sometimes teachers don't give the best answers in meetings. They weren't meant to be in meetings with people asking them questions. They weren't meant to be questioned about what they do for teaching, right? So it's important that we ask good questions to get meaningful information. I don't care what the information is, what the answer is. I just want the truth. If I know what the truth is, I can build from there. Okay. But if I don't ask good questions, that's on me at the meeting. You're not asking good questions, that's on you at the meeting. Okay. So questions to consider for the how. Number one, is there a method that's been proven to be more effective for the student when acquiring knowledge and skills? That's good to know. If Elena is a reading specialist, I don't know how you make kids read. She does, right? So I'm certainly going to gather that information when I'm leaving Miss Thomas's kindergarten room. Hey, Miss Thomas, can you tell us what you did with Billy to make him love reading when he used to roll on the floor? Let her share that. Hopefully that exists in the IEP progress report comment section. It usually doesn't, but it's important that you have to remember in every IEP meeting, you're getting everybody at the table to talk about the great stuff they did to make Billy successful. And if you can't get that talking going, I certainly can't continue the success, right? There can't be anything more frustrating for a teacher than make gains with a kiddo, and then she sees that same kid next year, and the teacher's like, I can't do anything with him. We could have asked. You could have asked Miss Thomas what she did with him last year to help. We could have asked the OT, what did you do? We could have asked the vision expert, what were you doing? So that we build on those successes. So in as much as you can in the document, capture what, Ms. Powell is doing to make it crush it this year. Okay. So is there a method that's been proven to be more effective for the student for acquiring a skill? Okay. Next, are there methods that have been ineffective for the student when acquiring knowledge and skill? And while this sounds funny, I love being yelled at. I have a very strong personality. I like strong personality people to be my teachers where I go, but most people don't like that, right? Most disabled children don't do good with somebody that's very strong, and this is the requirement, right? They need adaptations to their instruction. So one of the things that I think is important, and some kids do, is that when I'm in a meeting and I'm sharing, hey, Auntie, it's April of 2025 and he's going next year. I just want you to know that Tanya was very kind and a good listener and held the line, but she let him get all of his words out. And that was really effective this year with Michael. So next year, when you're looking to staff for him, if you could look for a teacher that's just as amazing as Tanya, that would be fantastic. There's a method, there's a way that she worked with him that was successful. So it's very important as advocates, we're all advocates, that we are sort of passing that baton to the next person. I can't say, well, I like Miss Thomas. Can her sister be here next year? Because we don't like Terry. Well, we don't say that, goofball. That's the quickest way to get Miss Terry to be your teacher, right? Do not let your clients go in and go, I don't like Shannon and I want Tiffany. Talk about the characteristics of their teaching, right? So for kiddos that are getting specially designed instruction, if there's something amazing that's going on, you want to move all those components to the next teacher. And as much as you can help, that will help with staffing as well, right? And then number 3, the delivery of instruction. Delivery, okay? So by whom? It's the 3 W's. By where and when. Whom, where, and when will the instruction be delivered? So these are the important, really good questions. I've trained a lot of people. They were all very smart before they met me. What I teach them best is how to ask good questions. So when you go in, Stephanie, and you're working with Kat, what does that look like? What day of the week are you working with her on her reading deficit? What skill are you teaching her to self-manage her reading comprehension deficit? You've got to ask questions that require a specific answer. Save your breath. Don't ask yes, no questions for you taking data. So the reason that you're getting frustrated in IEP meetings is you're not asking the best questions. And so I want you guys to work on that. Okay. So whom, where, and when. So Lee, when you provide your service minutes to Billy, where is that located? She can give me an answer. Okay. What day of the week? She can give me an answer. And what time of the day? She can give me an answer. I should be able at this IEP meeting for you to tell me when his SDI is going to occur. Well, it just depends. That's an ad on TV. Depends. Nope, I'm not doing that. If you can't tell me at the meeting an approximation of when it's going to occur, I can't sign off on this. Because a lot of times when we have kiddos that have specially designed instruction, it's very up and down, especially if we're looking at behavior, right? Well, I didn't want to take data because he's having a bad week. No, he's having a week. It's all data. I've got to take the data, right? So who's going to be, Elena, who's going to be working on goals 4 and 6 this year? Well, that depends. No, ma'am, that depends is not an implementer. Before we sign this document, I need to know who's delivering the SDI. Where are we to deliver the SDI? So when you're working on Michael's goals 4.2 and 4.4, where do you work on that goal? Well, I mean, he's got good grades. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So do you pull him to the back of the room? Does he miss part of recess? When does that occur? And then let them answer every week. I like this, embedded. But it's just, I like that. Everybody's getting it. Everybody in the class is yeah. Everybody in the whole state gets it. Oh, that's a problem. Then we need to write a no IEP. Okay. So you should know so that when you're not in meetings, and I've been in meetings with this school district for 6 years today, I could not believe she said she takes data 4 times a year. Don't overdo it. Do not overdo it. And it's a 1-minute running record. Whoa, you must be worn out. She goes, well, I knew you wanted the data. Okay. So is going to do it. Where are they going to do it? It happens during the class. Angie's teaching 7th grade science, and then Tanya just comes over and does it. No, that's not how that happens. Make them describe you, because that answer might tell you why you are not getting gains or you are getting gains. Linda really discreetly at the end of Angie's direct instruction just calls Billy back to work on goal 4.2 and 4.4. Perfect. I don't need a map. You have to be able to tell me what it looks like. Okay. And when all specially designed instruction on IEP goals should be implemented at least how many times a week? At least once. More often if it's behavior. If it's a related or instructional service provider, then it's going to be aligned to however many times. So if he comes in every other week at grading period, it'll be every other. I'm not expecting her to run in there every week. Okay. So that's why it's very important on all of the goals, except for related or instructional services, that you put those 3 magic words: weekly data collection. In Louisiana, they just put once a year. So whom, where, and when? Who will deliver the instruction? How many of you guys are asking these questions at meetings? A lot of us, as advocates, we're responding to a problem. I use all of this stuff, and my partners use all of this stuff proactively, so that when I'm writing an IEP for, Mikey, I'm saying who's going to be delivering that? When will they do that? Where will they do that? And so then we're all on the same page about what that looks like. Okay. So questions to consider for the delivery of the instruction. What instructional delivery adaptations are you going to need? I don't know. I'll just have to wait till I get in there. That's what you want your guy at the auto shop to say. Just when I get in there, if something's making noise. No, you're the professionals. We're writing an IEP. What adaptations are you going to need? Next, does the delivery, including the group size, produce sufficient opportunities for the student to practice and receive explicit feedback? So you guys remember that when we're writing IEP goals, what do I write at the beginning? After direct and explicit instruction. I write that at the beginning of every IEP goal, after direct and explicit instruction. What is that? Special education. Okay. Most of your goals just say Billy will, Susan will. Okay. It puts no onus on the district. Okay. So we're going to work on the IEP goal, right? Specially designed instruction. And then we're going to work on those 3 things, right? GMF, generalization, maintenance, and fluency, right? So Angie's going to come and work on the IEP goal once a week is fine. Billy going to practice that, right? When is he going to practice that? When does he have an occasion to practice that? So that then Angie can adjust what she's doing or increase what she's doing, right? Next, does the data indicate an adaptation to the provider's specialized knowledge and skills? This is tough. So it's very important to know if that person has specialized knowledge, right? I I love children. I don't know how to make one read. I know how to make one sit down in the back of the car. We're gonna hit the brakes, right? Doesn't mean I don't love children, but I don't know how to teach somebody to read. I don't know how many hours of reading specialized instruction Elena has taken. But it was a whole lot, right? And she still wants to learn more. So I would say, Sarah's going to be the case manager. She's going to do in-class support. Super. Sarah, what sort of strategies will you teach Billy to work on his reading fluency? I'll tell him to read faster, as God is my witness. That was in a due process hearing. She said, I told him to read faster. And then the other person that I called as a witness, I said, what are you doing to, she has a deficit in basic reading. She goes, I know. I said, you know? She goes, yeah. I said, you know what the definition is for basic reading? She goes, yeah. She basically can't read. Correct. So before you agree to a special educator, Lee's really good at what she does. I don't know that she's a reading specialist. She might be. She might have done that over the weekend, right? So just because you have a certification, right, for me to teach a science class, I hope I know a little bit about science, right? I know if you're the football coach, we know a lot about football. So if you're going to be the reading specialist, tell me about your specialized training. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times you're helping an employee who didn't want that job and can't do it. We get emails, our partners get emails all the time. We watch your content, blah, blah, blah. I don't have any training and they put me in this class. What should I do? Go in the parking lot and drive away, right? So one of the things that I do so that we can all service get properly in the meeting, as I say, Linda, do you specialize in math calculations? I mean, I have a calculator. I barely know BOGO. I don't. I'm like, isn't it really 25% off? So you need to ask these questions on the front end. I know I talk a lot about the back end and how we respond to that. But most of my IT meetings and most of our partners are good because we do it from the front end. We fully write this document so we're all on the same page. Here's when you know you've hit an owie. I just want you to know, Ms. Cunningham, we love children. Okay. That's when you know that we might have a deficit in this area. Okay. I don't know what loving children has to do. I've never been to a doctor's office and they said, we love little kids. What? Okay. Right? I've never been to the car place and they said, we love tires. This is not a love issue. This is, do you have the skill set to do the thing that child desperately needs for you to do? Okay. And we have to have this conversation every year with all of our friends, every time. Okay. One of the things that I do with my clients is I have a coming back to school meeting and it was good to see you meeting. Why? Because every year it's a whole new set of friends helping our friend, right? They weren't in my 17 meetings with Stephanie last year. They just heard about it, right? So as much as you work that out, I almost always with my clients have a review IEP meeting the first couple of months so that we don't start taking data on November 19th. And that we're all on the same page and we're all delivering that SDI. Okay. So that was a lot of information. I love to talk.
Hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change, we're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.